ahead and grab the hubcap itself, give it a gentle tug away. Using a 19mm socket, let's go ahead and remove the lug nuts. Once the lug nuts are off, go ahead and remove the wheel. We're going to use our 13mm socket, and we're going to loosen and remove this slider pin bolt right here and this one up top. Just go ahead and use a small pry bar here. I'm going to go ahead and work our caliper loose. Once that's loose, I'm going to go ahead and use our hanger. Going to hook that. Set that aside. I'm going to go ahead and use our mini pry bar and pop the brake pads off. Using a 21mm socket and a breaker bar, we're going to go ahead and loosen these bolts. Using a 21mm socket, we're going to remove this bolt here and this bolt here. This will release the caliper bracket. Take off your caliper bracket and set that aside. Using a number 7mm socket, extension and ratchet, we're going to remove this little bolt holding this ABS wire bracket. Using a 13 socket and ratchet, I'm going to go ahead and loosen and remove this bolt right here, or this nut. Go ahead and remove these plastic clips by pinching the tabs on the back and pulling it through. Repeat this for the rest of the plastic clips here. If the pliers don't work, you can use a pry tool and literally just pop those off like so. These would be replaced anyways. On the back side of this flap is where the connector is, and that's these two little gray tabs. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our pincher pliers. We're going to pinch those and push that through. Do the same for the other side. And these are going to be replaced as well. Use a pick to follow through those little tabs. And this will allow a little bit of room for you to go ahead and disconnect your ABS wire. So here's a connector here. You're going to press down on this little gray tab and pull the connector apart. Using a 15mm socket, we're going to go ahead and remove this hub bolt here, and there's one just to the right of it, and there's one up above, one here, and then one just to the right of it. With the hub itself unbolted from the back side, we're going to go ahead and use a dead blow hammer to go ahead and hit the brake rotor to get and pull the hub and the rotor off. It looks like ours came out. We're pretty lucky. Gonna feed your ABS wire through. Using a 17mm thin wall socket in our impact, we're going to go ahead and remove the brake rotor bolts. You want to go ahead and clean everything up. You can use a wire brush, you can use air tools on this stuff here. You want to make sure that you have clean mounting surfaces for everything. Inspect your backing plate. If it is rotted or you have big holes in it, now's the time to replace it. Ours is rusty, but it is still pretty solid. So we're just going to scale that and clean this up. Now on your knuckle here, you want to go ahead and do the same. Clean out the inside. This is where the hub is going to be sliding into. So make sure that it is free of any rust, debris, anything like that. And if you have the ability to use air tools, just use the mild cookie cleaner. And we're going to clean up the face here and on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and feed our ABS wire through the rotor. Line this up. Let's go ahead and get our rotor bolts installed. Once we get these in, we're just going to go ahead and snug them down. Now these are our 4 bolts to hold our hub in place. There is some Loctite in here from the factory. I'm going to go ahead and try and clean this out. Some of these threads have some stuff still stuck in there. If you have the ability to use a power tool, you want to go ahead and do that. Or you can spend some more time using your little bristle brush like so. All right, now we're going to go ahead and feed our ABS wire through. We did go ahead and clean up and put some anti-seize on the knuckle itself. We get our backing plate lined up. I'm going to go ahead and feed this in. Our ABS wire goes on the top, so be careful feeding that in. Make sure your backing plate is lined up. I'm going to go ahead and install one of the bolts through the back of the knuckle. And you probably have to rock the hub and the bearing around a little bit just to go ahead and get those threads started. Once you have this bolt in, go ahead and continue for the other 3. We're going to go ahead and torque all 4 of the wheel hub bolts to 92 foot-pounds. I'm going to go ahead and torque the rotor bolts down to 15 foot-pounds. We're going to use a small pry bar. And 15 foot-pounds is not a lot, so we're not going to damage these studs at all. And do this in a crisscross pattern. Let's go ahead and tighten the 13mm nut on this ABS wire bracket. I'm going to snug that down. Then we're going to come on over to the front bracket right here, and we are going to use our 7mm. And I'm going to tighten down this bolt right here. So once you get your brackets installed here and here, we're going to go ahead and run your ABS wire through and start snapping these into their factory location. You just want to get these clips mounted up. Snap those into place. Now what we're going to do is feed this behind. Want to grab your factory connector right here for your ABS. We're going to connect that. And then once this is connected, we're going to push our plastic tabs through the fender liner here. So we'll go ahead and press this in. You hear it click, and just bring that harness around. Using our 10mm socket, we're going to go ahead and loosen the brake bleeder screw here. We're just going to crack it open until some fluid starts coming out. Now that we have some fluid coming out, I'm going to go ahead and take the caliper off of its hook. We're going to use an old brake pad, and we're going to use a clamp. And what we're going to do is compress the two pistons back in, and as these go in, it's going to push fluid out through the bleeder screw. So make sure you have a catch can underneath to catch that fluid. Let's go ahead and slowly turn this in, and we're pushing those pistons in. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the clamp. And then we're going to go ahead and tighten up that bleeder screw on the other side. And then we're going to go ahead and rehang this. Let's go ahead and install our caliper bracket. We did go ahead and clean off our caliper bracket bolts and put some blue Loctite on there. I'll go ahead and line this up and get these bolts started. We want to torque our caliper bracket bolts to 129 foot-pounds. And repeat for the top. We'll go ahead and install our pads. Now let's go ahead and remove our caliper from the hook. Let's go ahead and line up our caliper. Slide our slider pins in. And we did apply a small dab of anti-seize on these caliper bolts. And then we're going to go ahead and torque these down to 29 foot-pounds. I want to go ahead and put our rubber cap over our brake bleeder. Now what you want to do is hop into the vehicle, we'll pump up the brakes, now we'll go under the hood and we're going to check our master cylinder brake fluid level, and we're going to top it off as needed. Go ahead and install your wheel. Let's go ahead and get the lug nut started here. Let's go ahead and snug down the lug nuts. I'm going to go ahead and torque the lug nuts down to 103 foot-pounds. Do this in a crisscross or star pattern. Now, if you have wheel caps like we do, you want to go ahead and identify a small little half-moon notch in the wheel cap. This will identify where the valve stem for your air will be located. Go ahead and line that up with the valve stem, and then tap the cap on.